Hello, Maverick fans. Welcome to another edition of the Mavpuckcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Jon and I are here. Had a nice off week while Omaha wasn't playing games, so we've got to go way back into the archives for us and chat with you a little bit about that Yale series. But before we do, Jon, how is everything? How's life?
Everything's going well. It's always weird when we have those bye weeks because I never know whether to record the weekend of the series. And if I do that, then we're closer to the series that just happened. But then we're also 2 weeks away from the next series coming up, which means I don't know what the record of our opponent's going to be, who are going to be the top scorers on the team that we're playing. So I never know. Do I stay closer to the old matchup that already happened or record closer to the next series? So this season, for some reason, I've had it in my head that we'll just, we'll take the week off when there's a week off. And then that week before the upcoming series is when we'll record.
Well, so I guess it's a good thing for the chat to get into a nice argument about is what they would prefer us to do. And we'll, uh, we'll see what the community requests of us.
Exactly. And it worked out pretty well because UNO announced and got approval for $67.5 million in capital improvements in and around Baxter Arena. So we will be talking about that a little bit later on. But before we get to the hockey and the preview of the North Dakota series and all of that, we've got to thank our founding members for their support of the Mavpuckcast this season. As I am talking, you are seeing a scroll of the names of those who have donated to be founding members for the 2025-26 season of the Mavpuckcast and everything we do at mavpuck.com. And I will say that founding membership is closed for the season. We kept it open longer than normal because we were selling 2 group ticket allotments, one to Augustana and one to Arizona State coming up in the second half of the season. And we are sold out of those ticket allotments, Jason. So it's going to be really exciting to have 2 good groups of UNO hockey fans at both of those series. We really appreciate the support. You get all kinds of fun updates throughout the year. So in the meantime, you can join up for a free membership. You get more limited content, but you can stay in touch with us. So I hope you'll do that.
So, shall we talk about some East Coast hockey then?
Let's talk about that. It's always fun to go and play those ECAC teams. It was neat during the game, during the intermissions, they had little mini documentaries on the hockey arena, which was designed by kind of famed mid-century modern designer Eero Saarinen, Jason. So it was kind of a cool arena. I heard it was freezing in there from the people who were attending.
Yeah, it's got a reputation for being a cold rink. It's got a reputation for being really fast ice too, which was something that was kind of exciting going into it. It's definitely, I think, one of the more unique venues in college hockey, and so maybe someday I'll make a trip out there and get to see it. But we were talking to some people, and someone mentioned it looks like a boat capsize, and you're inside of it, and I'm like, I love that analogy.
Yeah, exactly. They refer to it as the Yale Whale. It kind of looks like, and I don't think you've ever been in there, but the Catholic Church just a couple blocks from us where Bridget and I got married, St. Thomas More Church, it looks like a boat, and inside it looks like a boat. So enough architecture talk from us. Going into that Yale series, we were hoping to get back on track. We'd had a tough series the weekend before against Western Michigan at Baxter Arena. First period, Friday, Jason, 1:10 into the first, Max Pellerine puts UNO up 1-0. The puck deflected off Yale goalie Jack Stark's blocker pad. Pellerine puts it in. So kind of a familiar spot for UNO to be in early, Jason, being up 1-0 early on. How are you feeling about their prospects then? Just, briefly here. I was feeling pretty good at that point.
Given the struggles that Omaha's had the last few games and the streak of losing and stuff, you were excited to see us on the board first. You were, I think really relieved to see them play well in that first period.
Yeah, absolutely right. About midway through that first period, 10:26 into the first, Yale's Micah Berger ties it up. It was a really bad defensive zone turnover by the Mavericks that led to that goal. So it's tied 1-1 after one.
It's a pretty even period. I
Yeah.
thought both teams kind of played a little to their strengths. Both teams struggled in certain areas. The unfortunate thing for UNO is that we are still in that trap of bad turnovers, like you mentioned, that leads to that goal. But there were plenty of other ones where they're trying stretch passes they have no business trying. Getting hemmed in their zone, not really staying connected on their transition out, and it kills us. And unfortunately, like this was your chance. We talked about it in the preview of the series. Like you're really looking for Omaha to come in here, make a statement, get a pair of wins, get out of the weekend, and have some confidence rolling into Grand Forks next weekend. And so, 1-1. I mean, it's an okay place to be in, but you're really looking for the rest of the game for UNO to kind of like establish some dominance and really go out and put some pressure on Yale.
Yeah, and that score held until about midway through the second period.
Hmm.
11:47 into the second, Donovan Frias puts Yale up 2-1. So it's 2-1 after two, Jason. And Yale goes on to win the game 2-1. It was scoreless in the third.
Yeah, I mean, we had some good plays, later in the second after we gave up that goal. Yale's goaltender played well,
Yeah.
and really in the third we probably made our biggest push. But we season preview and stuff like scoring is going to be a challenge for this team. There doesn't seem to be that go-to goal scorer on this Omaha hockey team, and so when you get into a situation where you're having to get production up and down your lineup, any one line having a bad night could really spell a disaster for UNO, and it didn't seem like we could really put together wave after wave after wave of pressure. We get some pressure, we'd have some opportunities, and then you get hemmed in our zone and lose in transition, and play kind of a neutral zone game for a few minutes, and like there's just not a lot of flow. And I really think that that's kind of what led to the demise of UNO, is like we just didn't have that go-to punch.
And we've seen flashes and we've seen things where we think if they can get it all together, we can see something really special, but it hasn't quite come together yet. But it's still the first half of the season, Jason. So,
And it's a non-conference game. You're still figuring some things out. You still might be trying some different things. We talked about goaltending and stuff. You're still looking to give your goaltender some confidence and, get the kind of production and performance out of particularly Simon, our number one, that we saw the last few seasons. And he just hasn't really looked like the same. And I don't know if that, my gut would tell you as a guy who's watched hockey for a long time, like I would say that has more to do with the system or the players in front of him than it does with anything that's specific in his game. And so they're really looking as a team to kind of come together and start putting things into a position where they can be successful.
absolutely right. So we go into that Saturday game, hoping to get a positive result on Saturday night. Freshman forward Cam Briere was back in the lineup. He was one of my players to watch in our preseason episode of the Mavpuckcast. He'd been out the previous couple of games. Simon Lacozy also got the second start in net. The previous two series, the goaltenders had split time, but they decided to go with Simon, which I think turned out to be a good idea on Saturday nights. And going into that first period, midway through the first, Cameron Briere puts UNO up 1-0, a backdoor goal off a nice pass from Cam Mitchell. It was Briere's first goal as a Maverick, so it was 1-0, UNO after one, Jason.
I was not surprised by the decision to have Simon come back for a second game. It's what we're used to seeing out of him the past few seasons, and so I think the hope I would expect, at least the hope from the coaching staff, is probably just get him into a more predictable routine. You've given your backup some looks in some games. He's seen some NCHC play, and so he knows kind of what that is if you do need to call on him later in the season. And then it's really good to see Briere back on the ice, and then to be able to get on the score sheet. He had some really good opportunities that just came up stone cold, and so got a good shot off, and that's going to be a recipe for success for that kid here going through the rest of the season.
Absolutely right. And that 1-0 lead for UNO held through two periods. I got to tell you, Jason, I love these games where there aren't like 9 goals scored. Like it seemed like every game going back to the beginning of the season, like 7 or more goals were scored. And like when I'm there and I get little video clips, like it is a lot to try to put that together every week. So I'm all for UNO winning games 2-0 the rest of the way. All right. Third period Saturday, 150 into the third. Sean Chagall puts UNO up 2-0. Good awareness by Chagall on the shot in the slot to put that home. And that was big early on, right at the beginning of that third period to get that goal. And that held all the way through the third. Look, that's a Yale team was a hardworking team. It's going to be interesting to see how they do in the ECAC race down the stretch. But UNO held. They played well. They won
Get an empty
faceoffs.
net goal from Broberg.
Yep.
Yale pulls their goalie pretty early, and I think that
Yeah.
because they started to see some success, I'd say kind of later in the second period into that third period, you
Yeah.
start to see a little bit more. They put a little bit more pressure on our defense, and that's kind of what started generating some
Yeah.
offense for them. More like what we saw on Friday night, and the early 2 goal lead in the third really helps, like you said. But that empty net goal, pretty soon after they pull that goaltender, just kind of, essentially seals the deal. I think the one, unfortunate thing is, with what, like 15 seconds left in the game, you give up a goal, and Simon loses out on a shutout. So that's kind of an unfortunate thing. It is what it is, whatever. But it's like you really, you played a much much better game, I think, on Saturday than Friday, and that I think is good for this team heading into, coming back into NCHC play, is to at least have something to build off of.
And UNO got stuck on the way back. I'll just mention this in passing here, Jason, in New York City due to, a combination of weather events and the holiday travel. So those guys were posting pictures from Times Square in New York City on Instagram. Jason, the Mavs went 3-6 in the month of November. So a tough month for UNO.
December's not an easy one either, and then you end up into NCHC play, which we know is a gauntlet. So the team needs to. We used to say man up. I mean, like you're gonna need to be ready here because it's not easy. It's a different level of hockey, and you know I think there's a lot of good things that came out of the Yale series that you can kind of look at and say, hey, we can build off of this, but there's also a lot of problems, and this team needs to fix those problems really really quick, or it's going to be a really rough rest of the season.
Yeah, we'll see if they tweak some things here, if they had time to work on some stuff during that off week, and potentially get some players back who've been banged up the last
Getting healthy
few
is
years.
always helpful.
It is. It is. Jason, got to ask you, who was your player of the week for that weekend series against Yale out in New Haven,
Yeah.
Connecticut?
I think the one player that just kind of was on my list is like maybe kind of both nights was Sean Chagall. I thought he did well in the things that we needed him to do. He was one I want to call out this weekend.
I'm going to pick Cameron Briere for getting his first goal, and good to see him back in the lineup. Like I said before, he was one of the freshmen coming in that I was excited about. Played in the USHL, was successful there, and I think he's going to be a really successful player going forward for UNO. And he has 1 goal and 1 assist this season, so hopefully he's just getting started. He was the
Yeah,
he was the
he
extra
seemed to have a
forward
little bit of
Saturday night.
chemistry in those games with Plant, and so I think if he continues to, find some chemistry there, that could be, really big for Briere.
Absolutely right. All right. Jason, we've got to thank our sponsor. You've been working with Wahoo Distillery for a while now. Has it been about a year that you've been working with them?
Yeah, a little bit more than a year.
Yeah, and we are very happy to have them as a sponsor of the Mavpuckcast this season. And Black Friday just happened, so you missed some of the promos going on there. But Jason, we have a
But
promo code for
yeah, I say they were nice enough that they're going to keep the promo code open all the way through the holiday season, and so you can head over there and put that in and get yourself a pretty nice discount. The nice thing is that unlike their Black Friday sale stuff, this extends to everything that's on their website, so you can jump on there and purchase from there. And the other nice thing is, being a local business, which is what we talked about, we wanting to support. We just like the connection to the community piece of it. And so, the nice thing is that if you want to order it, you can actually just head on out to Wahoo and pick it up when it's not a snowstorm kind of thing. So it's a great way to kind of pick up some gifts for some family or gifts for yourself, because sometimes it's nice just to buy yourself a gift.
yeah, great gift for that whiskey connoisseur in your life. That promo code is Mavpuckcast to save 20%. And to learn more about Wahoo Distillery and to order, visit wahoodistillery.com. All right, Jason.
And we could talk about new stuff on the campus, huh?
Yeah, we get to talk about this $55 million training facility, which is part of $67.5 million in capital improvements for UNO athletics down there on South Campus, on that Scott campus, right around where Baxter Arena is. Jason, when they built Baxter Arena a little over a decade ago, we knew that more was going to happen down there. They had talked for years about a baseball softball complex. And for years, the baseball and softball teams played at, high school venues, etc. So they never really had a permanent home.
Mhm.
And obviously, several years ago now, they built Tal Anderson Field and Connie Clausen Field there, which that baseball complex is really nice. We've
Yeah.
been to a couple
And
games there.
the teams have had some really good success. Baseball, softball programs have been, you know, I think really competitive the last few years, and so it's good to have. I love this concept of having a home for Omaha athletics and that kind of area just becoming where you go to see all Omaha sports.
Yep.
Um, I will say before you get into it, I think that's the one thing that surprised me a little bit actually was like I expected the next big production, the next big thing down there was going to be moving soccer to, its own field and somehow kind of putting that down in that area to move that sport down to that area. And so I was semi surprised that we're adding on, let's say, to Baxter Arena.
The Regents on the Friday before this podcast, so a couple days ago, approved 67.5 million in capital improvement projects for UNO athletics, including that $55 million athletic training facility next to Baxter Arena. It's funded by private donors. And so let me go over some of the key bullet points here and then we can talk a little about this. The training facility will be located just east of Baxter Arena and it will be connected by an elevated skywalk. So that skywalk will connect behind where the club lounge is in Baxter Arena. Okay. And they hope that this athletic training facility will be kind of the new hub of Maverick athletics. It will eliminate the current need of frequent and costly conversions of Baxter Arena's main floor for hockey, basketball, and volleyball practices and games. Okay. So I would imagine, Jason, that they will potentially play maybe women's basketball or volleyball in this new flex facility that they're putting in, which will be one of two gymnasiums for competitions and events. So there will be a 1,300 seat spectator grade arena over in this new training facility. So, what do you think about that?
I mean, I don't know that it matters a whole lot to me. Like, I mean, I think I can see where they say like you can save some money not having to convert Baxter from ice to court and back again and that stuff. So that could, be helpful. I'm curious how they do it and how the players feel about it, right? Like some of the appeal is, if I'm going to come here and play basketball, I want to play in Baxter. Like I want the big arena kind of thing. I don't want to be playing this like mini gym. So
It,
I I'm guessing that a lot of that conversion isn't so much the others. I purely speculation. I don't know that it's so much the other main sports that are doing it, but more of like the other events that they may have had to convert Baxter over for that now they won't have to.
yeah, that is an interesting point that you make. I would assume, for example, obviously hockey will be playing in Baxter Arena, and I would assume men's basketball. I think the big question, and I be the first to say I've never been to a women's basketball game or a volleyball game. So I don't know how many people that they get for those games. I don't know what the season ticket numbers are for those games because that could be awkward taking season ticket holders from like women's basketball and saying, well, now tonight we're over here in this 1,300 seat facility. So it'll be interesting to see what the pecking order is. Probably depend on what the coaches want to do. I mean, maybe women's basketball says, you know what, if we can pay in a more intimate 1,300 seat facility and have more full houses for that, maybe that's better for the players and the team of the program. It'll be interesting to see. And like you mentioned, part of it might be for the other events, and that's something you and I were talking about along with Bridget and Jolene this last Friday night when we were eating dinner before Omaha
Yeah, because there's
Lancers
a
game.
conference area include like we
Yeah,
haven't mentioned yet in that, but so in addition to the small gym is now this, you know, area, and I think that that's where I wonder if that's where more of the conversion cost cutting comes from, in that,
yeah,
we can still have youth hockey on the community sheet. We can
yeah,
still do I think it's Friday night, that's the curling stuff that's usually, over there and stuff. And then when we have these like the alumni events and things like that, that
yeah,
they've had to kind of cover over that. Well, you have to like schedule, you can't book a youth hockey thing there, or you can't book that. You have to kick the curlers off the ice or something for things like this is now going to give you that space where you can be like, all right, come do our little event thing, blue line club thing, things like that, right? Over here at
yeah,
your home, and then just go over and watch the game, and we can still have these events. And so it's positive in both ways, I think, for the university. It's positive and you keep the revenue from those other activities. And it's positive that you don't have the negative effect of having to convert that stuff over. So maybe
yeah.
that's where they're seeing it, their cost savings and stuff more than we're going to move women's basketball over or women's volleyball over to this now new mini gym area.
Jason wants to see UNO's Division One sports that are arena sports playing in Baxter Arena. So we'll see what happens. But as
I
you
want
know,
Baxter Arena packed for every event that, every UNO sporting event that's actually like, I think and I would imagine, I would be surprised if anyone would say that this isn't, but like, I would imagine that's what the athletic department's thinking about is how do we make sure like we get the best athletes with the best product that we possibly can, encourage fans to come out and watch basketball. We've talked about it way back when we did the segment on advice for the university. We talked a lot about like, if you have season tickets to hockey, you get a discount on season tickets to basketball or volleyball or something. Or like a combo pack of get men's and women's season tickets for this price. And, you get a significant discount in doing that. Because if people have the tickets, they're going to be more inclined to come to the events. And that's what we all want. We all want an environment where we're supporting our university and we're all excited to be out there cheering them on, regardless of what sport they're playing.
the one thing I would say, because you and I are going to go back and forth on this for the next few years until this place is built and we see what they say. The example I use is Creighton. Okay,
Yeah.
so obviously the basketball team plays in the CHI Health Center, which is like 18,000 seats, right, for men's basketball. Creighton women's basketball team and the Creighton volleyball team, they both play in DJ Sokol Arena, which is a couple thousand seats. So I could potentially see UNO using this for women's basketball and volleyball until the point when those teams build up their followings. But again, we don't know. So we don't want to put ideas in their mouth. And one of the things that you mentioned, you were talking about some of the events, which is, I was big on the fact that rather than trying to, for example, shoehorn the BLC appreciation night into the little fishbowl space, that little Maverick room that used to be the team store down there in the lobby. It would be great to be able to have them over in one of those gymnasiums or in some meeting space over there where there would be more room for people. Because as well as I do, the BLC member appreciation events that they do, one in the first half and one in the second half, are always really popular, but seating is at a premium. So I always feel like I want to get up and, let somebody else sit in our seats so that, everybody can have a chance to sit down and eat their Godfather's pizza and that type of thing. And then one of the events that you and I both attend that we really like is the alumni night that they do before a game each season. And this year, Katie from the Alumni Association was telling us the reason that they ended up doing it on a Friday night was because there was volleyball going on Saturday afternoon. And so they couldn't take up the practice rink because UMass, who was the team in town, needed to be able to practice that afternoon and they couldn't do it on the main ice. So, as you mentioned, freeing up Holland ice sheets and not having to cover that up for special receptions and special events would be key. In addition to that, when you talk about maximizing your revenue as an athletic department, you look at some of the sponsor events that could be held over in this new facility, and then those folks could take the skywalk over to the arena after the event and watch whatever game it is, whether it's hockey, basketball, volleyball, etc. Would be great to be able to do. So I think that this helps make these sporting events kind of a more modern sporting event instead of trying to shoehorn it into the limited footprint at Baxter Arena.
Just like the hockey team, it comes down to execution. We're looking at pictures of this and we're reading the the marketing language that's, dumped out on it, and it's like, yeah, but let's see what it looks like and what it feels like when it's actually done.
Yeah, absolutely right. There will be two practice courts, as we alluded to, including that flex use 1,300 seat competition course. There will be locker rooms and lounges for men's and women's basketball and the volleyball program. It'll have integrated strength and conditioning, sports science, hydrotherapy, nutrition, and mental health zones for 8 sports programs, dedicated academic and life skills spaces for tutoring and career development. So, kind of one of those academic centers. The last bullet point is event ready design with direct Baxter Arena access via Skywalk, which that's what Jason and I have been focused on because we're all about the fan experience. So 75,000 plus total square feet and a cost of 55 million. And then in addition to this, they're also going to be building a baseball and softball clubhouse over at the baseball and softball fields, which will have sports specific locker rooms and team lounges, training areas, and sports medicine areas, and then meeting spaces, coaches' offices, pitching and batting cages, sports science, equipment storage, and then on site amenities adjacent to Maverick Park. And that will be costing 12.5 million. So it's a really cool development. And as we're talking here, you've been seeing, if you're watching on YouTube, all of the renderings and pictures that they have. So this is an exciting development for UNO athletics. Certainly is going to benefit UNO hockey, especially those training and sports medicine facilities. It's right there next to the arena, right by the apartments that a lot of the players live in. Jason, any other thoughts on this training facility and capital improvements that are going on down there on South Campus in the orbit of Baxter Arena?
No, I mean it'll be a while before we see anything. So I think a lot of fans are rightfully concerned, probably a little bit with what does the parking situation end up looking like, and so we'll see that how that kind of develops. I think you know it's we're going to lose some, but does it end up mattering in the long term? I don't know, kind of thing. And so and then how they sell it, it's, hopefully it's a good recruiting thing for Omaha that they can get some, you know, quality players to come here and say this is the kind of facility I want to develop in for the next 4 years.
Yeah, and so for those who are wondering on the parking, because this is obviously that's the first thing people started talking about. Now, I would argue most fans park in lot 27, which is that parking lot just northwest of
Along
Holland
Center Street.
Ice, right along Center Street.
Yeah.
Lot 25, which became a paid lot a couple seasons ago, right in front of the southwest entrance of Baxter Arena. Lot 26, which is by the baseball fields. And then club seat holders park in lots 21 and 22 right next to the arena. Now, where this is going to be put is where lot 24 is, which is east of that club lounge there. Part of that is a reserved lot. It's not a lot that we typically park in for hockey, but it will remove some spaces. I know that like Lawler's parks over there and that type of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects things. I mean, maybe a parking garage is in our future someday over there, Jason.
Maybe. I mean, maybe a future plan is to, maybe widen that road. I don't know what the name of the road is, but the road that goes from like through the parking lots and down by the baseball fields, and then you can actually take that all the way out to Grover Street if you go all the way down it. Like, I've always thought that with the people that park over by the baseball and softball stadium and stuff, it's in the winter, it's kind of a long, cold walk. And so, maybe a future thing is some kind of like covered walkway or something and widening that street and making it easier to get fans in and out of there. Um, I don't know. We'll see where the university kind of takes it, but
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, 67th Street is the one that curls from Exarban Village right around the north side of Baxter Arena there and then goes by the baseball fields. Yeah, we parked in every lot at one point or another. So yeah, where they're going to be building this facility is in the lot that's east of 64th Avenue on that east side of the arena. So I'll be interested to see how that impacts things. You never
never know.
know, Jason. Should be a fun development going forward. The construction will begin in 2026, and they hope to occupy the facility by 2028. So that's a quick timetable, Jason.
2 years for a project that size is pretty fast.
Yeah, and Jason and I definitely would like to get a tour of it before it opens. So we want pictures and video of ourselves for the podcast wearing hard hats and walking through the facility. So, you know, Adrian, you got to make that happen for us
Listening.
when when that comes around. But should be an exciting facility and some exciting developments here for UNO athletics as they slowly make their move, Jason, to that South Campus area, potentially freeing up land for other academic developments on the Dodge Street campus. So should be interesting. But we've got to talk about our weekly top 20, the Mavpuck.com weekly top 20 for the week of December 7th. Jason has updated his rankings for this week. And at number 20, he has the Bemidji State Beavers. Number 19, Harvard. Number 18, Minnesota. Number 17, Northeastern. Number 16, UConn. Number 15, Cornell, a team we play here in just a few weeks. Number 14, Boston University. Number 13, Maine. Number 12, Boston College. Number 11, Dartmouth. Dartmouth is just slowly moving up there, Jason. Tell you what.
Not
Number
as
two,
fast as some people, though.
not as fast as some people want. Number 10, Quinnipiac. Number 9, Minnesota State Mankato. Number 8, Penn State. Number 7, Western Michigan had a very entertaining series against Minnesota Duluth at Lawson Ice Arena. I watched some of that series this last weekend. Number 6, Wisconsin. Number 5, North Dakota, our opponent this upcoming weekend. They had a really good series against St. Cloud State, which we'll be talking about here in a little bit. Number 4, Michigan State. Number 3, the Denver Pioneers. Watched some of that series that they had out there at Magnus Arena against the Miami Redhawks. Number
Before
2,
that, they played a nice series against Minnesota too.
yeah, that was that. That was that. Was that the like Hall of Fame game or whatever at
Yeah.
Ball Arena there. Yeah. Lots of hockey been going on since we last recorded an episode. Number two, Minnesota Duluth. And the number one team this week, the Michigan Wolverines. Yeah, good to have this week's rankings, Jason. But we've got to talk about UNO's next series at North Dakota. We play both of our series against North Dakota here in the first half of the season, which is just weird. But that's the way it goes now that we're not their travel partner anymore. Now that we have 9 teams in this conference, soon to be 10 teams next season. North Dakota is 12-4-0 overall. They are 6-2-0 in NCHC play. And North Dakota is led by first year head coach Dane Jackson, who is 12-4 as a head coach. Before I get to the players to watch, Jason, what are your initial thoughts about this season? We saw North Dakota last month in Baxter Arena. The Fighting Hawks swept us during that series. It was a tough series. But as we talked about before, a lot of talented personnel on this roster, 12 NHL draft picks. New head coach in Dane Jackson, but he was an assistant under Bradbury. So a lot of good continuity there. But this is a team that always has a roster full of talented players who you know are going to play well, especially in the confines of Ralph Engelstad Arena.
Yeah, honestly, I thought our best chance to beat them would have been when they were at Baxter. It's tough to go up there and play North Dakota, and especially when they are rolling. I remember years where they just were walloped with draft talent, and people were talking about them for national championships, and then they like barely scraped 500 out of a season. Sometimes they've had those types of years where they just weren't, getting it.
Right.
Like you said, there's a lot of continuity. The coach knows the players, he knows the staff, he knows the arena, he knows the NCHC, and he's showing that, I can have these guys ready to play. And so I don't think that, we're gonna go in there and surprise them. If we're gonna beat North Dakota, it's gonna be because we're gonna go in there, we're gonna outwork them. That's a tough thing to do because they're generally a hardworking team.
Some players to watch, Jason. And I tried to pick some different players than we highlighted in the first season series last month. Mainly because there's a lot of guys we could pick as players to watch. And I don't want to rattle off the entire roster, but these were some guys I noticed this last weekend in the series that North Dakota played at St. Cloud State. Freshman forward Will Zellers has 10 goals and 5 assists this season. He is third on the team in points. He's had a goal or an assist in each of the past 4 games. Sophomore forward Cade Littler has 4 goals and 4 assists. He had 2 goals in the Saturday game last weekend against St. Cloud State. And Cade Littler is the son of Bliss Littler, who was a former head coach at the Lancers and a former head coach at Tri-City in the USHL here in Nebraska. So a name that Havage has 3 goals and 10 assists this season. He also had 2 goals in the Saturday game at St. Cloud State. And then in net, 2 goalies have split time. Freshman goalie Jan Spoonar has a 1.75 goals against average and a .929 save percentage. So he's a talented freshman goaltender for them. And then grad student goaltender Gibson Homer, who transferred from Arizona State, has appeared in 8 games this season. His last appearance was November 15th, and he has a 2.78 goals against average and a .882 save percentage. So I don't know which of the netminders we're going to see, Jason, but it should be interesting to see these guys in action. Jason, what's your prediction for this series at North Dakota? It's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. Unfortunately, you look at this and, up and down the stat sheet comparisons, like we lose out. Our top scorer doesn't break their top 10 kind of thing. It's like it's tough. They've got more guys in double digit points than we have. They've got higher points per game percentages. They score more goals, they allow fewer goals. Our goaltenders have performed better, both of them, so it doesn't matter which one we see. Um, they've got a better record, they've played better hockey, they're more connected. Um, it's hard, like, because everyone looks at this. This is not the kind of team too that you go like, oh, they're known for overlooking Omaha. Um, and so it's like I said, it's just hard to kind of look at this and say like, where is it, right? I would normally say like, okay, so maybe we could squeak out a win if they overlook us, if they've got, Denver coming up next. And so I'm not going to worry so much about Omaha because I got to worry about how we're going to perform against Denver. Well, their next opponent after us is Mercyhurst, so non-conference, and don't they get like a break? I don't think they play them until like end of the month or something. I mean, it's not like it's the following week, so they got a lot of motivation to go into an off week or two and go in there with a good feeling of sweeping Omaha at home. The only way that I think we like the way that I think we win is we play smart hockey where we're not turning the puck over. Um, that we're playing connected, we're supporting each other. So that when those turnovers happen, whether that's in our favor or against us, we're not getting hurt by those turnovers bad, and we can capitalize on our turnovers and turn them into points quickly. We've got to fire on the power play. We've got to find a couple power play goals each night. If we're gonna, especially if we're going to come out with a sweep. And really, what it comes down to is Simon's got to play significantly better than we've seen him play. This is kind of one of those series that we need him to kind of steal a game for us. North Dakota's going to come at us in waves, and we're going to need him to stand tall, and just make some really kind of I expect some insane saves. Unfortunately, like I just don't like I hate banking on so many like it hasn't really happened this season, so let's just, fingers crossed, hope it happens here. I think they're capable of doing it. I want to go on record as saying that, like, I think Omaha's capable of surprising North Dakota, going in there and playing a sound game and getting, honestly, I think they could get 2 wins out of this if they really put in their best effort. I just don't see it happening. I don't see North Dakota dropping 2 games at home before break. Um, to the likes of Omaha that they have motivation to beat anyways.
It's going to be tough. North Dakota in conference play has scored 34 goals in the conference games they played this season. They've allowed only 19 goals so far this season through 8 games. Omaha, on the other hand, has scored 19 goals and they've allowed 33 goals. So it's like almost the complete opposite of the goals for and the goals against. So yeah, it's going to be tough for UNO. They're going to have to play smart, sound hockey. It's the holiday season, Jason. And so I'm going to give a generous prediction here. I'm going to say we go in and we find a way to split, that we surprise North Dakota going into that Friday night game, having had some time off here, maybe to rest up, work on some things. Friday's game will be at 7 p.m. Central, Jason, and Saturday's game will be at 6 p.m. Central at Ralph Engelstad Arena. You can listen to the games in Omaha on 1290 Coil or online anywhere on the Varsity Network app. Mike Valancourt and Terry Leahy will have the call. Both games will, of course, be streaming on NCHC TV. And be sure to follow Mavpuck on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all of our socials for updates during this upcoming series against North Dakota and going forward throughout the rest of the season and the summer and next season. And for the entire future, be sure to follow Mavpuck on all of those socials. But until next time, Jason, go Mavs.
Go Mavs!